Ever gone on a cruise and thought, I could live like this forever? No rent to pay, no dishes to clean, no traffic jams, just Caribbean sunsets, gourmet meals, and fresh towel animals every evening. It's a fantasy that's captured the imagination of more and more people in recent years. What if you could actually live full-time on a cruise ship? For retirees, digital nomads, and dreamers of all kinds, the idea of spending every day sailing to new destinations while someone else makes your bed and cooks your meals is irresistibly appealing. But before you start packing your suitcases and canceling your internet plan at home, let's talk numbers. Because the true cost of living on a cruise ship for a year may surprise you. At first glance, it seems totally doable. Cruise lines like Carnival, MSC, and Royal Caribbean often advertise sailings starting as low as $49 to $75 per day. You see that $65 a day deal, and the math seems simple. That's just $23,725 per person for an entire year at sea. For a couple, that comes out to under $48,000 a year, less than what many households spend on rent alone in cities like New York, Los Angeles, or Sydney. It almost sounds like a cheat code to life. You get accommodations, food, and travel for less than the cost of a modest apartment. But that advertised price? It's just the opening act. The reality is that number only covers the base fare, and even then, only for one person based on double occupancy. That means if you're traveling alone, you're likely paying a single supplement, essentially covering the cost of two people in a cabin unless you manage to book one of the limited solo rooms, which are notoriously scarce and often pricier per square foot. The costs start to creep up fast every time your ship pulls into port, whether it's Cozumel, St. Martin, or Naples. The cruise line pays port fees and taxes, which they pass directly onto passengers. These aren't included in the advertised rate and can add up to several $100s per sailing. Over the course of a year, with weekly or bi-weekly cruises, those port fees alone can run into the thousands. Then there are the gratuities. Cruise lines automatically add daily tips to your account, usually in the range of $14 to $18 per person per day. It doesn't sound like much on a 3-day cruise, but over 365 days, a couple will pay over $10,000 in gratuities. It's technically optional, but most long-term cruisers pay it without question. It goes to the hard-working staff who clean your room, serve your meals, and basically make ship life feel like a floating hotel. And we haven't even touched the onboard extras: drinks, Wi-Fi, specialty dining, shore excursions, spa treatments, fitness classes, laundry. It all costs more. Even if you're trying to live frugally, chances are you'll spring for internet every so often, grab a cocktail, or treat yourself to a meal at a specialty steakhouse. Cruise companies know this. According to Carnival Corporation's financial reports, onboard spending accounts for roughly 45% of total cruise fare revenue. That means for every $1,000 spent on the base fare, the average passenger drops another $450 on extras. So if your total cruise fare over a year is around $100,000, you could easily spend another $45,000 just living day to day on the ship. To make this more concrete, take the Carnival Horizon, a newer ship that sails year-round from Miami. It offers a rotating series of 6- and 8-night Caribbean cruises, making it easy for someone to stay on board long-term without constantly transferring ships or flying around the world. Using actual 2021 data, a full year in a balcony cabin aboard Horizon would run about $103,700 in base fare for 2 people. That's just your room, basic food, and onboard entertainment. Add in about $14,000 in taxes and port fees, another $10,200 in automatic gratuities, and an estimated $46,000 in onboard spending, and you're looking at a grand total of around $175,000 per year for a couple. That breaks down to roughly $87,500 per person. That's a big number. But when you compare it to the cost of living in a major city, it's not entirely unreasonable. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average household in America spent roughly $71,000 in 2022 on housing, transportation, food, insurance, health care, and entertainment. In cities like San Francisco or Manhattan, it's even higher. So, in a strange way, living at sea can actually be price competitive, especially when you factor in what that cruise fare covers. housing, utilities, food, entertainment, cleaning, and global travel. There are people who are already living this life. Angeline and Richard Burke, an Australian couple, gained worldwide attention after revealing they had been living on cruise ships full-time since 2021. By strategically booking discounted sailings and using loyalty points, they claimed to spend under $44 a day each, less than the average cost of rent, utilities, and groceries back home. Then there's Barbara Brooks, a 64-year-old Texan who left her home behind and now spends months at a time on ships like Holland America's Zaandam or Princess Cruises' Coral Princess. For them, cruising isn't a vacation, it's a lifestyle. Long-term cruisers often become loyalty experts, unlocking perks like free laundry, unlimited drinks, complimentary internet, and even priority boarding. Some know the cruise directors and wait staff by name and get recognized by returning crew the moment they step back on board. But living on a ship full-time comes with its own quirks. Cabins are small, typically between 150 to 220 square feet, unless you're shelling out for a suite. That's less than the size of a typical college dorm room, and you share those tight quarters with another person. Privacy is minimal. Internet, even with recent Starlink rollouts on ships like Royal Caribbean's Symphony of the Seas or Carnival's Celebration, is still patchy, expensive, and slower than what you'd get on land. Medical care is limited to basic treatment. Anything serious and you're either flying home or waiting until the next port with a decent hospital. You'll also need private travel insurance for long-term stays, and navigating visa restrictions can get complicated when you're visiting dozens of countries in a year. Another growing factor is the introduction of dynamic pricing models. Cruise lines now adjust the cost of packages and experiences based on demand and season. Royal Caribbean, for example, might charge $63 for their deluxe beverage package on one sailing, but $89 on another. Entry to Coco Cay's Thrill Water Park, onboard Wi-Fi, and even some specialty meals now shift in price depending on sailing. That makes it hard to budget long-term, especially if you're booking back-to-back cruises months in advance. Still, if you're flexible, there are ways to cut costs. Interior cabins can reduce your total bill by 30 to 50%. And if you're sailing solo, finding ships with dedicated solo cabins, like Norwegian Cruise Line's studio rooms, can help avoid the dreaded single supplement. Older ships like Carnival Ecstasy or Royal Caribbean's Vision and Radiance class vessels tend to run lower fares than the newer megaships. Repositioning cruises, those rare one-way sailings when ships move between regions, can be insanely cheap. Some repositioning cruises from Europe to the US or Asia to Australia have been listed as low as $25 to $40 per night on discount sites like Cruise Sheet or Vacations To Go. You can also work on board. Cruise lines frequently hire lecturers, performers, yoga instructors, and guest hosts who get a free room and meals in exchange for their services. You won't be lounging by the pool 24/7, but you will get to travel the world for free, and in some cases even earn a salary. Others make it work by running businesses remotely from their cabins, using sea days to answer emails and port days to get fast Wi-Fi and supplies. And so, could you do it? It's not just about money. Living full-time on a cruise ship demands adaptability, patience, and a willingness to downsize your entire life into a suitcase. But for people who crave movement, community, and a break from the traditional grind, it offers something most lifestyles don't: adventure, simplicity, and the feeling that every day might bring something new. Maybe that's worth more than square footage and fast internet. Whether it's a retirement goal, a year-long adventure, or just a thought experiment while you sip coffee at your desk, one thing is certain: the open sea is more accessible than you might think. Just don't believe the $65 a day headlines without reading the fine print. Because as with all great adventures, the reality is more complex, but maybe, just maybe, more rewarding than you ever imagined.